What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media, and today we are talking about an Entertainment Weekly article that came out about The Walking Dead. Now, there's information in here about the final season. There's information in here about the upcoming spinoffs. There's a lot of little tidbits and information that we get, including stuff about Norman Reedus' injury and behind the scenes information that we didn't have previously. So we're going to get right into all of that information here. It's definitely worth reading the whole article because there's a lot of stories that we're not going to get to, but we'll just jump right into it. But if you guys like Walking Dead content, definitely hit me with the sub button and the like button. I hope to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. And with that, let's just jump into the article. So they spend the beginning of the article kind of summarizing The Walking Dead up to this point. So we're not going to talk about that too much. But one thing that is really interesting here is that Scott Gimple pretty much says that it was AMC's decision to end the series. So he had plans to continue the series on, and AMC decided, no, it's the final season. It was like a corporate, business decision that's the best way to get a resurgence of interest in the show, basically, is how I would look at it. But that's not what he said. He said that was AMC. It was heavy when it happened. I wasn't expecting it and had all sorts of plans for the future. So they had to pivot, and then they used ideas that they had previously into the spinoffs and stuff like that. So I find that really interesting that it wasn't necessarily a decision that he made. He was handed down this decision from on high, basically. So the other interesting bit of behind the scenes information that we get here is that the announcement about Negan and Maggie series, originally called Isle of the Dead, it's now called Dead City. That announcement was not up to the creatives behind the show as well. Angela Kang is here talking about they didn't know the timing of the information being released, and they assumed that it wasn't going to be announced until after the original series was over. So it does change the way certain things are going to play out compared to how we thought they would play. I guess that means that they had Maggie and Negan in suspense, where their survival was going to be at question, and now they think it's just going to play off that the audience already knows, and they're not going to be as in suspense. And I do find that unfortunate. I do consider it a spoiler to make that announcement, especially if the creatives behind the show were not involved with that decision. So I'm not sure that, I approve of that, but, I can see it from the business perspective because the series is ending. You have to give something for the audience to keep coming back and a reason to keep caring. So I understand, wanting to get that announcement out before the series ended as well, to show, hey, there's a bunch of things to look forward to. It's not really the end for the franchise. So even Jeffrey Dean Morgan, of course, who plays Negan, said that that's not the way we should have gone about it. He didn't approve of the announcement. So I find it interesting, actors and creative people almost going out against the network. But, we understand that these things happen in business and in life. But here they backtrack it a bit and say, we know that they survive, but of course there's so much more to the story than whether or not they survive. And of course they are correct. I understand it does come off a bit like cope, but I get it. You gotta say only positive things. I totally understand that. So here they're talking about how they don't want to make it just a setup for all the spinoffs to come up, and they want to make it a conclusion. They talk about later how they really want to make a lot of references to earlier in the series run. So here, they're talking about what kind of finale is it going to be. But Nicotero says he's the director of the finale and one of the creatives who's been with the show since the beginning. And here he is saying, the truth of the matter is that we're ending one story, but we're continuing other stories. So part of it is that, yes, The Walking Dead is coming to an end, but the stories will continue. So it's sort of an ending. So there you go. That's him confirming what I've been saying all along. So here we get some information on the spinoffs, and now the Daryl Dixon spinoff has changed direction multiple times over the course of a year, according to the Star. And of course, one of those times this change is when we got Carol Melissa McBride pulling out of the show almost last minute. So that's definitely one of the ways. But there's other ways it's changed, and they wanted to make something really different. Different tone, different light, different sound. It's a whole different vibe. According to Norman Reedus, it's going to be epic. So I think that's cool. And of course, here they bring up the World Beyond finale. And given that it also takes place in France, it's almost certainly connected. So the interesting part is here. They say that follow Daryl as he wakes up and finds himself somewhere on the European continent and tries to piece together what happened. How did he get here? How's he going to get home? So you guys know I've complained recently about convenient amnesia. So just, head injuries and people forgetting stuff. But to forget, like, the most crucial piece of information that we're wondering about the show, which is, like, why does Daryl go to France? How does he get there? But I guess, we're going to get that taken as a mystery, and it's going to be revealed in bits over time. So I'm guessing that's what they're going for. And, it's an interesting concept. It's not how I would have thought to go about it. I would have thought that we'd have a bit more to go on than just that. But I guess, Daryl's in France. We don't know why. We're going to find out later. So, Dead City. Here they talk about Negan and Maggie, also known as Nagy, according to me, and Nagy's journey onto the Isle of Manhattan, where the bridges and tunnels were blown up at the outset of the pandemic because the Walker herd had just overrun the island, and it's been left that way for 12 years. So it's 2 years after where we're at in the series currently, which is about 10 years, a little longer than 10 years after the apocalypse, I'm pretty sure. So it's now a 2 million Walker strong herd that is dominating the streets and making it treacherous and dangerous. So why do they have to go there? I have no idea. They don't explain that or anything here. But they have to go to this island, and there's a big herd there. I like the concept. It's an isolated island. It was completely overrun. They just cut off access to it. So I find that interesting, and I'm curious about it. And if they can really make proper use of the setting, it could be really awesome. So I think that's really cool. So here we're talking to Lauren Cohen, and she says that the story that showrunner Eli Jornet has written lets us go into the dark night of the soul in a way that you don't always get to do with a huge cast. When people say to me, wow, you've been doing that show for long, I say, and I hope that I do it forever. Well, I mean, she did quit the show and try to be a lead in another show. But that put aside, I get that they were going for the more intimate, personal stories here. It's kind of like a bottle episode extended out through a whole season, basically. So Negan, Maggie in their own show for 6 episodes. It's like its own bottle episode. So of course you can go deeper into one particular character. So that is a feature. A lot of us had kind of gotten sick of the bottle episodes after they were doing too many of them. And, so I don't know. We'll see how it plays off. And here we get a blurb about the Rick and Michonne show, and according to the AMC president, it became clear the best, most epic story we could tell would be a multi-episode, 6-hour-long, epic love story about these two rediscovering themselves, reconnecting, and setting off to reclaim their family. So, spoilers, it seems like, that makes it sound like, oh, everything works out. I'm sure that's not what he means. They specify here that though this description makes the spinoff sound like a single season limited series, AMC is not billing the show that way. So, a little bit of a discrepancy there with this higher up at AMC. But I find it interesting that they describe it as an epic love story because, again, to me, like, the Michonne part of the story is not a priority for the beginning, and I'm more curious about the CRM and setting up some of the bigger things, what Rick's been up to. I'm more interested in that personally. So this description doesn't do a lot for me, but I'm curious about what's going on. Of course, it is what I'm looking forward to the most. So Greg Nicotero agrees with me. He says it's critical because Rick Grimes really is The Walking Dead. It was his story. We started the story with him. And the comic corroborates that because basically the comic is Rick's story. I don't want to spoil the ending, but let's just say that you get a full picture of Rick Grimes. We'll just say that by the end of the series, and he never left the comic, basically, so he was always in it. So here we get a little information on the final season, the last 8 episodes. So Daryl's lead. Norman Reedus says Daryl's leading this group that is outside of the walls. They're being chased at this moment, and they're trying to turn that around and kill the group that's chasing them and sneak into a different way into the Commonwealth. There's a plan that's been set up and that's been spread amongst our people to get back there and F it up. So we are definitely getting the war storyline really quickly. Like I said, I think Hornsby is going to be taken care of. These are my speculations. But yeah, I think we're going to jump right into an action-packed episode. I think they really want to kick off these final 8 episodes with something big. So we're jumping right into the action with Daryl, it looks like. Expect that plan to succeed, judging by Kang's comments that a lot of these different threads of the story are going to start coming crashing together. So that is the author of this article's opinion on Kang's comments, not necessarily a definitive statement, but I would agree with his assessment. As for what the heroes will do once they are reunited, it sounds like it is not just about surviving in the community that brought them in, but taking it over. We should have the Commonwealth. It should be ours. Okay, that's interesting. Taking it a step beyond liberating their own communities to taking on the entire Commonwealth. And maybe it's Maggie who's leading the charge here. So that's really interesting. And here is where they reference season 1, of course, talking about the variant zombies. And I find it interesting here. A lot of people, when we're talking about these zombie variants, have brought up the fact that in the early episodes of the series, zombies were doing things that they weren't doing later. The first scene of the series is a zombie girl picking up a teddy bear, which is not something that the comics do, or the zombies do later. They don't do it in the comics, like I was about to say, Freudian slip. But they don't do it in the comics, and in the show, later they more clearly define the zombie rules, so they're not picking up bricks and breaking through glass windows like they do in episode 2. So there's always been a bit of a discrepancy there. And basically, Greg Nicotero says right here, the truth is we hadn't figured out yet for what the rules for the zombies were. We were still figuring that out, but they decided to use that as an opportunity. So that actually was part of their thinking behind the variants, was the fact that we've seen zombies that can do other things before. So I find that interesting. It doesn't really... I dismissed this theory before because it doesn't really work for me that in the early parts of the series, which is many, many years ago at this point, that there would be stronger zombies that would just eventually get wiped out later. That we wouldn't have seen more of these variants earlier, especially in terms of like evolution. They have more abilities, they are stronger, they are deadlier. You would think they would be more successful than zombies without those same abilities. So if variants are in the picture, you would expect them to survive longer than a standard zombie that's easier to kill and slow moving and doesn't pick up objects and stuff like that. So I don't find it like an adequate solution, but the fact that they use that as inspiration, I think is pretty cool. So, I'm not going to dismiss it too much. So basically they also bring up more stuff about the variants, in that there will be different groups of variants. So the variants we're getting in the main show are going to be different than the variants that we saw in the World Beyond teaser and that will be in the Daryl show. So there are different distinct environments and landscapes that lead to different types of walkers. So it's going to be region based, and we're going to get multiple different types of zombies. And I think this is good because one of the issues with the variant storyline that I talked about earlier is that once you go variant, it's kind of hard to go back. But if they make it regional, then, it's a little insulated. Whereas if the Daryl show with the variants in Europe doesn't really work out, we don't have to go back to Europe, right? So we can just kind of write that off. So that's something I thought was interesting in this article as well. So here they're talking about how difficult it was to make the last episode. They talk about how they had a lot of frustrations directed towards the director, Greg Nicotero, apparently. He's directed every series finale, or season finale, rather, since season 5. Except for the season 10 bonus episodes. He didn't do the Negan episode, I guess. So they made a point of saying he was the best director for that role and nobody else would have felt right. And, you know, I have to say I agree. I think he's earned that job, that final directing position on the main series. So I have to agree with that. So now, one thing that's interesting here, encouraging, is that, of course, the final episode is very important to a series, and you want to go out with a bang. You want people to remember it fondly, and they are heavily scrutinized. So I was hoping that we'd get a bigger budget for it, and I'm hoping it's an extended episode. We'll see. But here in this article, we have confirmation that while a typical Walking Dead episode is usually filmed in 10 days, the original finale script called for a massive budget-breaking 23-day shoot. So that is more than twice as long as they usually spend filming an episode. So I hope that means it's like action-packed and has a lot going on. So I would expect nothing less from a series finale for this show. So I'm excited that that happened. So now here we go, talking about things that went wrong on set. There are production delays, technical delays, a lightning delay, it says right here. And then Norman Reedus talks about the injury that we heard about. Apparently it was more extensive than we realized. He thought he was going to die, and he said it was really serious, and he's been hit in the face and head multiple times before, but this was something different. He's gone through car windows. I mean, I feel really bad for this guy, because like, it's for our entertainment. It's like, it's not real. Like, don't hurt yourself. please. I hope he's like not, doesn't have serious brain issues or anything lasting beyond the show, because that's awful. So yeah, we like Norman Reedus around these parts, and I hope he's doing a lot better now. So they say it was really tough, that the shoot was really strenuous on everybody, and the way it was structured, they ended up going over their original schedule. They're supposed to wrap at the beginning of March, but they wrapped a month later. So people had other obligations, and they had to film a lot of stuff, last minute. This is something that happens on a lot of shows. A lot of shows go over time and over budget. It sounds like they're not used to going over budget like that. So it's a special occasion for the ending. They said that the last shot ended up being just a bunch of extras, so it wasn't even with a lot of main cast members, but just the way they had to get everything lined up so that the people with obligations could get on flights and whatnot. So I like it, and there's a lot of you can read the stories of people saying goodbye to the show and their feelings about the show ending and stuff. Not any information for fans, but just like if you want to see how the actors feel about it, it's worth the read. So Melissa McBride also says that Carol has more story to tell. She's keeping it vague, but of course we would expect her to come back. I think she's still under contract, but she had to pull out of the Daryl spinoff. So those are the major things we got in the article. Some interesting confirmations about the variants, multiple different types of variants, the fact that they really did use Season 1 zombies as inspiration for the concept of the variants. Find that interesting. The fact that they didn't know about the final season being Season 11 being the last season until, last minute or so. So I think these are some interesting details. Let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. And with that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.